Hello everyone. Thank you all for watching the video and leaving meaningful comments. Wishing everyone good health and happiness. That morning, when I heard the news that the police officer had released me, I thought I would finally find peace, but things didn't turn out that way. Mr. Pow and his mother came to where I was staying. They didn't say a word, only vented their anger by chasing me out of the only shelter I had. Their shouts echoed through the deserted road. They not only drove me away but also destroyed the small shack I had built with all my effort. The sound of splintering wood rang out in my helplessness. Panicking, I left, my heavy steps dragging along the pain and humiliation. After walking a while, I turned back to see them heading home. A faint glimmer of hope rose in my heart, and I returned to my old place intending to rebuild the shack. But everything had been completely destroyed. Broken wooden planks lay scattered everywhere, and the torn roof couldn't be repaired. I stood motionless amidst the ruins, feeling as though the entire world had turned its back on me. I sat down on the ground, holding my head in my hands as tears streamed uncontrollably down my face. In that moment, I felt so small and powerless against the cruel twists of life. Painful memories surged back like a torrent, washing away any remaining hope in my heart. I wondered why fate was treating me so harshly. The mountain wind blew cold, but it wasn't as chilling as the loneliness in my heart at that moment. Looking around, all I could see were dry branches and cold rocks. With nowhere else to go and no one to rely on, I could only sit there crying over my bitter fate. The sun gradually rose higher, illuminating the narrow path but unable to dispel the darkness within me. I tried to stand up, wiped away my tears, and told myself to be stronger. But my legs felt weighed down by pain and exhaustion. I stood still for a long time before deciding to leave and search for another place to start over. My heavy footsteps left marks on the red dirt road leading into the deep forest. Each step felt like my heart was being squeezed by sorrow and despair. But no matter what, I had to keep living because apart from myself, no one could help me get through these dark days. James returned home and sat on the sofa in the living room, his gaze thoughtful and distant. Memories of the first time he met me flooded back, making him ponder deeply. The image of a distressed woman, burdened with injustice and pushed to the brink, kept appearing in his mind. He told himself, I must do something to help her. That thought drove him to take action. He picked up his phone, called a close friend, and arranged to meet at their usual coffee shop. Shortly after, the two were seated across from each other at a small wooden table. James recounted the entire story about how I was falsely accused of stealing Mr. Pow's house documents. His friend listened attentively, occasionally nodding in agreement. After hearing everything, James's friend shared some crucial information he had about the case. Specifically, they discovered that Linda, a person involved, had sold the land documents for 300 million VND. This revelation strengthened James's resolve even further. He and his friend immediately planned to gather evidence to clear my name. They quickly went to a place where key information was stored and searched for documents related to Linda's transaction. After hours of meticulous work, they finally obtained clear evidence, transaction papers and testimonies proving that Linda had illegally sold the land documents. Holding these valuable documents in his hands, James felt somewhat relieved. Without hesitation, he and his friend brought all the evidence to the police station. There, James detailed every aspect of the case to the investigating officers. The documents he provided became critical clues to reopen the case and uncover the truth. During his conversation with the police officers, James couldn't hide his concern for me. He repeatedly emphasized that I was innocent and had endured too much suffering due to false accusations. His sincerity and determination caught the investigators' attention even more. Leaving the police station, James felt a weight lifted off his shoulders but still carried a sense of worry. He knew that the journey to prove my innocence would be long and challenging, but he believed that with what they had accomplished today, justice would soon prevail. On his way home, his eyes reflected hope that my life would soon turn over a new and brighter chapter. I continued into the forest, where only trees and rocks kept me company, to dig for cassava to survive each day. My heavy footsteps led me deeper into the woods, where no other soul could be found. I bent down to unearth small cassava roots, trying to gather whatever food I could. Sweat soaked my forehead, and my hands were calloused from the hard labor, but I persevered because it was the only way to survive. While I was engrossed in my work, James arrived at the spot where we had met the day before. From afar, he stopped in his tracks, his eyes widening in shock as he saw that my shelter was now nothing more than a pile of ruins. Broken wooden planks lay scattered everywhere, clear signs of destruction still evident. He stood motionless for a long time, his mind filled with worry. Where has she gone? Has something happened to her? These thoughts weighed heavily on his heart. James stepped closer to take a better look at the scene. The remnants of the small shack I had once built were now just scattered debris. He could feel the harshness of what I must have endured. Unsure of what to do at that moment, he decided to return home to think of a way to help me. As for me, after gathering the meager amount of cassava roots, I left the forest and headed toward a stream. I chose a quiet spot by the water to set up a new shelter. Using simple materials I had picked up along the way, I tried to create a temporary place to stay. Once everything was somewhat in place, I lit a fire using dry branches I had collected. The flickering flames illuminated my tired face in the darkness. I placed the cassava roots I had dug into bamboo tubes and boiled them over the fire. In the dim light, memories of painful days came flooding back. I thought of my mother-in-law, the one who had treated me so cruelly. Her harsh words and cold actions felt like daggers piercing my heart every time I recalled them. Silent tears streamed down my cheeks as I remembered those times. I ate the cassava while crying. Each bite felt like swallowing bitterness as sorrow for my fate overwhelmed me. I wondered if life would ever smile upon me or if it would remain an endless stretch of injustice and suffering. The cold night wind blew through, but it wasn't as chilling as the loneliness in my heart at that moment. The fire gradually died down, leaving only faint light from glowing embers. I curled up beside the fire, seeking a bit of warmth amidst the cold night air. My eyes, stinging from crying too much, began to close. Exhausted both physically and emotionally, I drifted off into sleep under the dark canopy of the forest, letting everything around me fade into silence. Outside, the chirping of insects echoed endlessly as if harmonizing with my sorrow. The faint moonlight filtered through the treetops, casting pale streaks of light onto the ground covered in dry leaves. I fell asleep amidst the loneliness and coldness of this desolate wilderness, a place where hope seemed more distant than ever before. In the morning, I woke up beside the remnants of the fire, my hands numb from the cold of the mountains and forest. I warmed my hands over the remaining embers to chase away the chill, then stood up to wash my face with the crystal-clear stream water. Looking around, I felt the loneliness enveloping me, but I reminded myself to keep living and find a way to improve my life. I decided to head down to the village to look for work. The dirt path leading to the village was long and deserted, accompanied only by the sound of birdsong and the wind rustling through the trees. Along the way, I came across a mother and her young daughter carrying vegetables down to the village to sell. The mother was carrying a large basket full of vegetables, while the little girl struggled with a smaller basket. Seeing their hardship, I didn't hesitate to step forward and offer my help. I took the vegetable basket from the mother's hands and walked with them toward the village. Along the way, we chatted a little. The mother shared stories about her family's struggles, while the little girl looked at me with curious but kind eyes. I felt a sense of relief in my heart, knowing I had done something good amidst these difficult days. When we arrived, the three of us placed the vegetable baskets in front of a small roadside stall. The mother thanked me with a sincere smile, and the little girl cheerfully ran around. Watching them, I felt a small but genuine joy in life, a feeling I thought I had long forgotten. As I left, my heart suddenly felt warmer. Though life still held many challenges ahead, this moment made me believe that good things still existed somewhere. All it took was an open heart to receive them. I continued walking along the sunlit path, carrying with me a newfound hope for tomorrow.